Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Good Enough Chats. My name is Dan Boucher and I am the host and producer of the show. And before we jump into this conversation, I want to give you a quick heads up about what we're going to be covering. So in this episode, I'm joined by Simon Spencer. Simon is in his mid-30s now, and he is going to talk to us about the experiences that he initially, again with the benefit of hindsight, can trace back to his adolescence, a period of time where he started to kind of experience low mood, and that then sort of evolved into his 20s and his 30s and started to manifest itself as degrees of social anxiety, of withdrawing from or avoiding altogether large sort of social groups, social situations, and causing him a lot of emotional fatigue, and a sense that he was kind of overextending himself in the process. He talks about what that was like, how that manifests itself, but also some of the things that he has been able to do to get on top of that now that he is older, wiser, and has the kind of both the tools and I guess the language to explain this stuff more clearly. It's a really interesting conversation. Again, Simon is yet another lovely guy. Really pleased that we had him on the show. And without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Hi, Simon. How are you doing?
Hi there, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Not bad, not bad. I was just looking at myself on the screen there and realizing the bags under my eyes. Uh, I'm blaming the dog. The dog's got anxiety issues at the moment and isn't sleeping unless one of us sleeps downstairs with him every,
Oh no.
which, little sofa bed, quite a big dog. It doesn't necessarily work, but my eyes definitely look like wee holes in the snow right now. Uh, but yeah. Apart from that, I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, no, doing well, man. Yeah, completed a big run on Saturday. Was doing an ultra marathon for charity.
Nice.
And surprisingly feeling pretty good. I was expecting myself to feel a bit more achy and a bit more sort of mentally drained, but touch wood. Yeah, and I'm feeling much better, and I'm sure we'll get to it more later on, sort of thing.
We,
But
yeah,
yeah, feeling good.
we 100% will. And no, I'll ask those questions in a bit. I'll ask those questions about the actual run down the line. But Simon, for the benefit of our viewers and listeners, please could you introduce yourself? Could you give us your full name, where you live, what you do for a living, um, and I'm going to go with your favorite, possibly weirdest post-run snack of choice.
Okay. So my name's Simon Spencer. I'm 37 years old. I was born on 8th of the 8th, 88. So friends and family can never forget my birthday. I'm an IT technician or an IT field technician. So I basically work for a company, which is an MSP, and they send me out to loads of different clients, which are normally regular clients, but sometimes could be ad hoc as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, visit them, fix any issue from software to hardware. And that's my job 5 days a week. And I live in Bracknell, but I grew up in Maidenhead, so not too far away. My mum and dad still live in Maidenhead, so I normally see them every week. So pop over for a meal or something like that. And yeah, been living in Bracknell, I think, what was it? So it's 2025, 4 years, which has flown by. So I sort of moved in just in that weird COVID time in 2021 where you were sort of walking around houses with masks on and doing your first look at a house on a video, you know.
Mm.
That sort of weird time where you were a bit unsure about buying a house, but thankfully it was kind of one of the best times to buy. Um, and weirdest snack, do you know what? Whenever I do like a big run, I tend to always like revert back to my teenager self and I'll like buy like a sandwich, a dairy dunker, like random like little chicken bits, pork pies, like stuff I would have had, you know, as a kid sort of thing. I don't know why. I think there's just this sort of like there's a comfort in that. So you sort of you buy things that are quick and easy to eat. You can sort of lay on the sofa, pick at them, and stick something on YouTube.
Yeah, so basically it's an ultra processed crash in waiting, isn't it?
That's it, yeah.
It's just, I've just had my third pork pie, but there were three in the packet, but I just
That's it.
had them.
You think it's all undone really because of the run you just done. You're like, oh wow, it doesn't count.
Well, no, that's what you did. You went out and you earned the right to gorge yourself on absolute filthy food,
That's
uh,
it.
and then you start from an even keel for the
That's
next.
it.
Lovely stuff. Thank you, Simon.
No worries.
Let's jump straight into the questions.
Hmm.
Number one, as always, is why are you here today sharing your lived experiences of mental health?
Yeah, so I mean, my sort of challenges probably started, I guess, as a teenager. Um, but I don't think you recognize them, or at least I didn't anyway, until I was in my 20s or 30s. I think when you have problems as a teenager, you don't really, at least back in my generation, sort of, and you don't really recognize them back then.
Mm,
A lot of it's kind of, you look back on it and you go, oh God, I was actually not in a good space at, 13 years old. But back when you were 13, you were just thinking, you know, oh, I'm not really sure what's going on. I don't know what life's about. How much is it is hormonal as well. There's all these different sort of factors. So I think sometimes it's not until, I mean, I'd say really your late 20s, or at least it was for me, when, I had some sort of struggle points and probably early 30s as well. I'm quite thankful now, touch wood, like I'm 37 and obviously we all have daily, weekly, monthly struggles sort of thing. Mine's definitely a lot better now.
mm,
Probably actually post sort of COVID, really. I was quite worried before COVID. I remember when the sort of whole COVID thing was happening. I remember sort of, watching the news of them, announcing everything and sort of not knowing what was coming. I remember worrying for a second, like, oh my God, what's this going to do? Kind of
mm,
thing. Because I knew sort of about my past and things. And I thought, God, is this going to be the downfall of me? And thankfully it wasn't. I sort of, kept in touch with friends and family and, was doing my running and doing lots of things that still brought me joy. So it kind of knocked that out of the way a little bit, which was nice sort of thing. But it definitely was like a warrior moment sort of thing.
mm.
But my main sort of problems I've had with mental health definitely, yeah, they ended before COVID, really, which I'm quite thankful. They sort of ended sort of 2018 sort of time, I'd guess.
Yeah.
And but I always like to sort of speak about mental health. So I used to work with a non-profit based in Canada a few years ago during COVID, where I would do mental health blogs as well.
Oh,
And
nice.
they approached me to do sort of 3 or 4 a year. And I remember initially I was a bit sort of like anxious about like, well, why does anyone care what I have to write down, sort of thing. And it's one of those funny things, isn't it, where like I started doing them and people were reaching out to me, like some friends that I'd not heard from for a while. Like some friends from maybe school, for example, that you don't really speak to much just naturally these days. But they were reaching out to me going, "Oh, I really appreciate that blog you put up. I actually feel that same way." And it's when those sort of things happen when you realise that, oh, that person is dealing with quite a lot, and I never knew until they said something, or especially if it's someone that let's just say it's someone you see regularly, and you're like, oh God, they always seem like there was nothing ever wrong, or they seem really, really happy, sort of thing. And it's that moment where one to one, someone can be like, hey, look, I resonate with that.
Mm,
And that's when I started thinking. So I remember after the first couple of blogs, I was like, oh, do I want to keep doing this? And then when I started to get messages like that, I was like, okay, I need to keep doing these.
yeah.
So I think my plan is because that's kind of ended now a few months ago. But I'm going to try and start doing my own thing. So I've created like a separate Instagram account. I haven't publicized it yet, but I will in the next sort of few months. But I'm going to sort of go back to that, I think. And because at the end of the day, I kind of look at it this way, where is even if a couple of people are reading what you've written down, if that helped one person, you
Yeah.
know, and I know it's an old age saying, isn't it? But I really do think that just doing it for 10 people to read it and 1 or 2 people to go, oh wow, that's cool, that's helped me, or even if it's just like, you say something there about yourself that they didn't realize that you might not be comfortable saying one-on-one in a conversation. They could sort of, it goes into their head of like, oh, I didn't realize Simon felt that way. I'll bear that in mind next time I ask him this or something that,
Yeah,
oh, I remember that blog he said, and that's something to think about.
yeah, yeah, and that's very much the kind of the ethos behind these conversations. Is
Mm,
I often say to people there are two things that I want each episode to do. One is that it reaches someone and it helps them to realize that there are things that they can do that can positively improve their own situation experience.
mm,
Two is that it helps us to get a guest on in the future because
100%.
the two things, like they're so closely linked that we'll keep on having these conversations as long as people are willing to come and have them.
Mm,
And you're right. The feedback that guests get from being on these episodes tells me time and time again that people do need to know it's okay to talk about this stuff. People are not happy, but they're relieved almost when they see other people talking about this stuff. And
mm,
it's so important. And the other thing, and this is the first time I've mentioned this in an episode, but by the time we go live with this episode,
mm,
mm, this will be out in the public domain. Um, Good Enough Chats has evolved beyond the just the conversations, the episodes now. There is a website, goodenoughchats.com, and one of the sections of goodenoughchats.com is the community stories section, which is a place where people who have been a guest on the show can write blogs
mm.
and
Cool.
publish blogs in their own name, because I think it's going to be incredibly helpful to have some sort of central place where we can point people for useful stories and lived experiences. So if at any point in the future, Simon, you would like to contribute some of those stories to the Good Enough Chats community stories, we'd be more than happy to have you there. And hopefully
Yeah,
there'll be
cool.
a few guys already contributing to that by the time this episode goes live. So yeah, that's exciting news to break live
Cool. Yeah, sounds
this
good.
uh, on this context. And you didn't know that, did you? You didn't know
That's
that.
it. I know.
Surprises. Awesome. Thanks, Simon, for setting that scene. We'll kind of look at your journey and some of the specific experiences that you've had in a short while. But
Mm,
before we do that, how has your last week been? Obviously, there's been the build up to this
mm.
epic race, which I can now ask the questions I was going to ask at the start, which is what run was it? How far did you go? And how long did it take you?
Yeah, so it was it's called a Thames Path 50K run. So there was different options. You could do 25, 50, or 100K, which just seems 50K is insane enough, but 100K, yeah, it's just can't even begin to imagine. And funny enough, one of my good friends, Tom, he was at my first ever IT job. That's how I met Tom. Fantastic guy, and we kind of both influenced each other quite a bit. There was a period where he sort of fell out of love with running, and even just sort of with keeping his fitness up and things. And then when I started doing a London Marathon about a year and a half ago, when I did the 2024 one, that sort of influenced him to sort of get back into it. And he's been smashing it since. He's been kept it up the whole time. And then he did his first ultra earlier this year. And I remember when he was doing the training for it, I thought, God, I really want to, I don't know how many of them I'm going to do, sort of thing. It might just be a one and done. But I thought, you know what? He's inspired me to want to do it, sort of thing. So I thought, okay, if I'm going to do it, I need to do it for charity. Because I thought, when you're doing something like that, if you can, you know, do it for a good cause, I think it's just such a one. I think it's a good motivator for yourself to keep at it and obviously keep going with it. I think, you know, had I, let's just say, not done it for charity this weekend, I would have done the run, which obviously is amazing. I would have done all these good feelings for myself. But that's it. Whereas when I say, okay, I've done the run and you've raised X amount of money, it's just a nice thing to be able to do and to say sort of thing. So yeah, so I did that on Saturday. So basically, my leg of the run was starting in Runnymede, which is in Egham, and then running along the Thames Path route. which you can easily walk as well. It's basically a full set walking path which you can walk at any time, sort of thing. And there's no sort of closed areas or anything. And then I finished up in Henley, so it's quite the old distance, It's sort of going through Windsor and it's sort of going through Marlow and Maidenhead and whatnot. So yeah, so I started at 11 a.m. and I finished. I think it was five something. I think in total it was something like 6 hours, 20 minutes, or so, give or take something like that. Yeah, it was quite the old distance, and I basically I trained up to 35 kilometers. So on a day it was 50 kilometers, and the training plan sort of took me up to 35,
Yeah,
which is
that's quite,
crazy.
it's quite a bit short, really, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's funny actually because I got quite a few friends that I've met through running, which is one of the things I sort of love about the running community sort of thing. And I know, like yourself, you run as well, and there's always this sort of like thing that when you sort of meet people at park run and running events, and even just on Instagram, I think Instagram's actually got a really good sort of running community that you just sort of, I've met a few friends through that, and I remember speaking to one of my friends who's like, she sort of does running training as well as her main job, and she was saying to me like, yeah, it's kind of funny, isn't it? Because you run up to sort of 35, but that's basically on purpose because they don't want you to run more than that because then you end up getting injured and then you can't even do your main big run. So there's this weird sort of sweet spot, I guess, where they're like, well, run up to this distance and we'll just hope you've got the fitness for that last 15K on the day.
Yeah, that last 9 miles.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah. And I think mentally it's quite a big thing as well because I remember hitting like the marathon distance, so 42 kilometers on Saturday. I remember just thinking in my head, like, I've got another like 5 miles to run, and you sort of, in your head, you've already hit that checkpoint, right? So you've hit the marathon, the big old, which in itself, I mean, I always say in running sort of thing, like people always say they use the word only, and I hate when people use that word because people will go only 5K or only 10K, and I sort of think, for the most experienced runners, a 5K can be bloody hard. You know,
Mm.
you sometimes you get out there and you just don't feel good, or whatever it be, sort of thing. So I never like to say only because I always think it kind of diminishes because some people are trained a year to run 5K, and you're sort of almost diminishing what they've accomplished essentially because you're
Yeah.
saying, oh, only 5K I did, and you're like, well, it's not only 5K. 5K is pretty amazing, you know. Um, but it's one of those things where there's a lot that goes into that Saturday as well. So that it's many months of training, and I've kind of kept my fitness up pretty well since. I mean, kind of since the start of COVID, really. I mean, I've kind of ran since 2018, 2019, but it was more of a couple of times a week kind of thing. Whereas during COVID, sort of 2020 and onward, I've kind of almost kept going really. I've always had like running goals sort of thing.
Mm.
And a lot of it's tied in with my mental health, to be honest with you. I find that if I don't run, it sounds so silly, right? But if I don't run for 2, 3 weeks or something, I can feel it sort of, and I can start to feel
Definitely.
the thoughts, creep in and that sort of thing. So I feel like, it kind of stabilizes things a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I injured myself. Uh, I slipped when I was playing rounders in
Ooh.
July. Fun family game of rounders, and I absolutely stacked it on the one wet bit of grass there was on the
Oh.
entire pitch. And I landed on my back, so I hurt
Mm,
my lower back and then my rib cage as well, and I
mm,
couldn't run properly for a month. And
right.
I absolutely felt that. Physically, yes, but like psychologically, just not getting out there. And then I don't know about you, but it's very easy to then kind of form the habit of not going out for a run as well because you're like,
Mm,
oh, I can't be bothered because I feel knackered and I feel crap and it'll be horrible. And if you don't catch yourself soon enough, it can be weeks and weeks and weeks before you actually go back out again. At which point
mm.
it is horrible, but then you've probably managed to convince yourself that it'll be horrible for the first few, but then it will get easier again once you start to build your fitness up.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, fully agreed. I think, yeah, like an injury especially. can really sort of set you back because it's not just like obviously mentally you're not getting out there and you're doing your thing, but physically it's affecting your other parts of your life as well, depending on what the injury, especially like you said with an injured back like you had.
Yeah.
Um, that sort of injury, you know, trickles through the rest of your life everywhere, doesn't it? So it's it's quite a thing to yeah to better try and get back because you lose a bit of fitness obviously during that time as well. So then you're kind of sometimes starting back at zero and trying to build back up again as well. So it's yeah, there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah. But we are massive, both of us, massive advocates for getting out there and doing something. And as Simon says,
Mm,
if you haven't run before and you're out of shape, do the couch to 5K. It will hurt.
mm,
It will
mm,
absolutely hurt like hell.
mm.
And you'll hate it, especially going into this time of year when the weather's starting to turn and things. But stick with it. And when you cross the line at the 5K, you'll feel so proud. And then you'll probably
Mm.
want to do a 10.
Oh yeah,
Um, and then you might want to do a half. Then you might want to do a marathon. You might want to do an ultra. Or you might just go, do you know what? I'm just happy going out to do some runs. And it doesn't matter
exactly.
how far and it doesn't matter how fast I do it. I just know that I feel better for having done it. And I don't know about you
Yeah.
again, but there is, I think, like, there is this time during the winter when it's a real slog because it's dark and it's cold and it's wet and it's windy.
Mm.
But the thing that I use to get me through the winter months is knowing that putting all of that legwork in means that come March, April, when the days start to get brighter, you can go out and you can have these amazing runs because you've put the
Oh
legwork
yeah.
for the winter. You just get the benefit of it as soon as that weather starts to turn, and then the spring running is lovely,
Oh,
unless
100%.
it's
Yeah.
also wet, cold, windy in the spring. But yeah, no. So that there you go. That's your lesson learned for everybody that's listening. Go for a run, even if you've never done it before. Just try it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so big epic achievement on that run. Well done to you. I have never.
Oh, cheers.
I've done a marathon 3 times. I've sworn blind I will never do another. I hate the training for it, so I have absolute admiration for somebody that has gone even further than that. So massive hat tip to you. Do not ever lose sight of the fact that you've done that, and the vast majority of people will never do that. So
Thank you.
keep that one under your hat. Um, question 3 is about your relationship with your mental health over time. So you talked
Mm,
about experiencing those troubles when you were 13-year-old and how things are generally speaking better for you now and have
mhm.
been in recent years. But could you talk us through what those kind of triggers were, what those initial experiences were when with hindsight, you realized that that's when you were struggling a bit and how that kind of journey has unfolded for you along the way?
Yeah, sure. So I think, especially looking back on it, because I think it's easy, isn't it, to look back, but when you're in the moment, you don't really sort of compute everything. But definitely looking back, I think a lot of it, a lot of my problems years ago, especially, and obviously could happen now if I don't keep on top of it, sort of thing, is I think one of the biggest thing is recognizing when you need a break.
Mm.
And that could be anything, right? A break from, work sometimes if work's getting a bit too much, knowing that, okay, I need to book a few days off, but getting out of the mindset of, I need to go and do something for those few days. Actually just going, no, I need a few days off of doing whatever it's you want to do, whether it's sitting on the sofa, going out for walks, whatever it is you need to just unwind, recognizing that before it gets to it. I think the last thing you want to get to is where you get so worn out physically and mentally that someone's pulling you aside and going, you need to take a break.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of recognizing that and going, I'm starting to not feel myself. I need to take some time off, sort of thing. Generally, with work over the years, I've been pretty good with that, even if things have been stressful at times. They've either been very good at recognizing that, or I myself have normally been pretty good. I think the bits I've always struggled with is the social sort of part of it.
Right.
And, because sometimes, and I think, some people, I mean, I'm a bit of a contradiction really, where I'm a social butterfly. I love talking to people. I love sort of, very easy to talk to people in certain situations and new situations. But at the same time, I like a lot of my own time. And I think sometimes it's recognizing that more sort of, like a social situation when you don't want to. But also sometimes it's okay not to go and do something that you don't want to do.
Mm.
Because sometimes you feel better. Like I think we all get that sort of thing sometimes where, you're unsure about doing something in a social situation and you're working yourself up about it. You go ahead and do it and you look back and you go, oh, I'm really glad I went ahead and did it. But there
Mm.
are sometimes where you do go ahead and do it and you look back and you're like, wish I didn't go to that party or kind of wish I didn't go to that thing. I wish I actually listened to that. And it's trying to find which part, you want to, want to listen to there. And I think that's something I've got better at now I've got older sort of thing where, you know, but I guess the problem with that, and I think it's still something that I think we're all getting better at, but I think it's still, even though we're talking about mental health now more, I think it's still a bit weird if like, if someone invites you to a party and you go, I'm not really feeling it mentally. I need an evening's rest, but thank you, sort of thing. It's still a bit weird if someone says that when it shouldn't be, right? It should be that someone should be able to say that. But I think we're still in that situation where people don't feel comfortable to be able to say that.
Yeah, I feel like there's a tendency to try and fix
Mm,
things well, and I think that's particularly a bloke's thing.
mm,
Like if you would say, no, I'm not really feeling it tonight, I don't really want to, then I guess a lot of the time that's read as, well, do you want me to come round and just chill out and watch a
mm,
film or whatever instead of going to the party?
mm,
And actually, that might be the answer, but you might just need a bit of space.
mm.
And it's really tricky, isn't it? To kind of, as the person who recognizes that they need to make that choice,
Mm.
how you communicate that without then triggering a whole load of alarm bells for other people. Uh,
Yeah.
and maybe that's kind of the next phase of the mental health
Mm.
conversation. So if people are saying, look, I'm not, don't worry, I'm not
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
a position of danger. I just don't feel like it.
Mm.
um,
Yeah. No, you're right. I think it's and I think that's something that will get better. I do think with certain friends, of course, like especially if you've got a very close um, relationship with a friend or family member, I think you probably could sit there and go, I'm not really feeling it tonight, not really feeling mentally ready, sort of thing, or whatever. I think there are certain situations with certain people you could say that to. But I think even then, it's quite an awkward thing to sometimes say. You can feel like, or like you said, people might think, "Oh my God," thinking the worst. When, like you said, sometimes it is just no. I'm recognizing that I don't think, using the party, party is a good example, right? I don't think that's going to help me in this situation, or I've got some slight negative feelings, maybe even a 10% ratio. But if I go to that party, that's going to knock up to a 40 or 50.
yeah.
And I recognize that from past experience. I know myself well. I'm okay, thank you. But it's a bit of a hard one because you obviously you have that risk with the people sort of thinking, oh well, he's always avoiding things, or like, why is he not coming to this, or taking it as a disrespect thing, where it's like, no, 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 I just don't feel like doing that today, or you can have deeper rooted issues, like I would say I prefer smaller groups of people. It's not that I don't necessarily have I can easily be in a group of 20 people and survive it sort of thing and do it. But I think to be honest, I think most people actually prefer a group of smaller people. I think most people or sort of pretend like, no, no, I love being in massive groups of people. But I think if you actually to ask them like, would you prefer to be in a group of 3 or 4 people? I think most of us would. In general, I think just a lot of us admit it. But I definitely say that I would, I prefer a group of smaller sort of people because I think you get the true sense of what a person is in a smaller group of people as well. I think when you're in a big group of people, you kind of like everyone's kind of on their, their I don't know, they're showing their parts of their personality where they're trying to like massively endorse all their sort of personality and like, hey, this is me, and all, putting all these things out there and not really being their true or self. Whereas in a smaller group, you kind of, you can have one-on-one conversations. You can sort of talk about a few more serious things. But I think when you're much younger, obviously the big thing is to be in big groups of people and do all these sort of things. And I think that's why a lot of mental health gets missed early on because you are hanging out in massive groups of people. No one's really talking about deep-rooted things ever.
Yeah. You
A
get
lot of it
lost
gets
around.
missed. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So I've certainly always preferred, the sort of smaller groups. And I've just recognised that better. I think years ago I used to force myself into situations where, I wouldn't want to do it. Whereas now, much more, and sometimes not even I don't want to do it. Sometimes it might be you want to go to a party, or you might actually want to go and hang out with a group of friends or whatever. But just you're not feeling that particular day, or you might want to go to that gig like huge amount, and you go, do you know what? I'm not feeling it today, and you don't go sort of, and that's okay. I think that's the thing. I think it's the old saying of the fear of missing out, right? That
Mm.
goes around quite a lot, and people feel like they have to do it because if they miss out on it, they'll forever regret it, sort of thing. And that's true to some extent, obviously, like depending on what it is that you're going to do, sort of thing. Obviously, like a holiday or something like that, you're obviously booked is obviously slightly different to like a one-off sort of thing or something that you do regularly. But I still think it's important, even if it is a big thing, to recognize that if you're really truly not comfortable in that situation, it's okay to take yourself out of it. And I
Mm.
think the people that don't understand that, can sometimes tell you a lot about those people as well. Like if you've got someone that's going to make you feel really bad for not coming to something, and they're not actually asking a question of like, "Oh, you okay?" That
Yeah.
can tell you quite a lot about that person. And I think you then look back on it and go, is that person a true friend or because most people that know you well enough, especially if it's been a few years or so, like they'll know like something's going on with Dan, something's going on with Simon. What's up? And even if you ask them and they don't want to speak about it, then at least like that person's asked you, and you can kind of they've touched upon the point sort of thing, and they're not sort of just driving past it and thinking, oh well, they're not interested in me as a friend
Yeah.
or romantic partner or something like that, and they're just it's dismissing it straight away. They've asked the questions and they're showing they care, and I think that opens up opportunities for the future for that person to talk about it because that person's showed an interest, in you.
Yeah. It is a, I mean, I can, so I'm just going to close a window here because it's starting to rain.
No worries.
Don't want too much water in here. Um, it's a very pertinent topic for me.
Mm,
Um, so I'm an introvert. One to one, absolutely fine.
mm,
Pick me in a group of 4 or 5, I start to get more uneasy.
mm,
Beyond that, a bigger group of that, I really don't like it. I'd be a wallflower. I'd be. I don't think I would necessarily always be anxious in the build up to it,
mm,
but when I get there, I will be. Um, I had an interesting experience just this weekend past. In fact, it was
mm,
our local beer festival
mm,
on the Saturday, and I went along and I went with my wife, and I went. I knew I was meeting up with a couple of people there, but I'd had a bit of a weird week in the build up to it, and it was almost, with hindsight, a bit of a sort of a pressure valve was being released there,
mm,
And anytime I was talking to people, I was almost hyper, just as I was just talking at them. And
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
partly nervous energy, partly kind of release valve has been undone. So,
Mm,
um, and I probably came across as a little bit wild-eyed. Obviously, I had a couple of beers as well. I was kind of thinking about that yesterday. In fact, I was thinking, gosh, it's weird how the kind of the days that lead up to a thing that I was actually looking forward to going to, and I did enjoy it when I was
mm,
there. But it's weird how influenced I was by
mm,
at the subconscious level by the stuff that had been happening in the week in the build up to it.
mm.
Um, Not to the point where I regret talking at people a lot. I was probably a little bit annoying, if I'm honest. Um, but yeah, normally I would run a mile from situations where
Mm,
I was having to go and see lots of people that I didn't know. But I've kind of decided, at the age of 46 this year, I've decided that I'm going to like directly challenge myself to not shy away from that stuff. And there's
mm.
a series of things that I'm trying to do to constructively challenge myself to feel differently about those situations. Um,
Yeah, that's good.
I'll be honest, it's absolutely exhausting.
Mm.
So hard just doing things that, and people are like, oh, well, why on earth would you have organized this if you hate being in this situation? I was like, well, kind of because I hate being in this situation, I feel like
Yeah.
I should try and challenge myself not to do that.
Mm.
Just see what happens. We'll see. We'll see
100%.
how it works out in the end of
Yeah.
the day. But I'm again in my mid 40s, finally come around to the idea um, that you can actually change if you
Mm.
want, and it's not written in the stars that that's the way it's going to be forever, even though that's how it might feel you're going to be.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it is. The whole pursuit is absolutely knackering
Oh, yeah.
along the way. If you're not built like that in the first place, it's yeah, trying to embrace that way of behaving is yeah different.
No, 100% agree.
So how if you don't mind me asking, Simon,
Mm.
when you kind of look back at how you were feeling when you were a teenager and with the
Mm.
benefit of hindsight, how did those sort of challenges manifest themselves for you? Can you think of any sort of examples of specific situations that caused you problems?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was like closing in within myself, especially in my early 20s sort of thing. Like I wasn't like your average person in their early 20s going out all the time and seeing friends and I saw friends and things, but it was normally very much one-on-one.
Mm.
I wasn't like, sort of going down the pub and sort of all that sort of stuff. But then it kind of changed when I was like late 20s. Because fun enough, I didn't drink alcohol for a long time. So I didn't drink alcohol, fun enough, for about 18. So when obviously legally you can do so, till I was, I think, 26.
Right.
Yeah, 26 years old. And it's a funny one actually. I went on a stag do with some friends to Vegas, the old classic Vegas sort of thing. And I was never peer pressured into it at all, sort of thing. But obviously a few people having a few drinks and things. And I remember thinking like, what's holding myself back from having a drink, sort of thing. And I remember like obviously, getting drunk a few times on that like holiday and really enjoying myself, but not like to the nth degree sort of thing where I was like really in a bad way or anything. But I remember just sort of thinking like, why am I holding myself back from from doing that sort of thing, and enjoying it and whatnot. And I still don't know why to this day sort of thing. I think maybe like anyone, when you drink too much, you can sometimes obviously mentally put yourself in a bit of a bad way, especially if you struggle with your mental health. It
Mm.
can kind of sometimes reopen some of that. And maybe subconsciously I was kind of thinking that potentially. And obviously years later I'd find that when I did start sort of drinking and sort of, going out and whatnot in my late 20s, yeah, when I'd get maybe very drunk, I would like kind of that would resurface some of those bits, and then I'd be like, oh, okay, this is the reason why maybe subconsciously I never did it in my early 20s.
Mm.
And I've never actually, I mean, funny, even to this day, sort of, I'm not really, especially, since sort of since during COVID time when I got really into the running and stuff, I've never really been a massive drinker sort of thing. Even back in the, my late 20s sort of thing, it was maybe going out a couple times a month, but I was never, would never drink during the week sort of thing. And it's funny, actually, I guess, like, looking back on it years down the line sort of thing, I probably saved my years of damage or something from
Mm.
not sort of drinking because I've never, said never been a heavily drinker now. I've never sort of, thankfully, because sometimes obviously with mental health and alcohol and things, there could be a very bad relationship, and I've never, thankfully, had that. It's never, I've never craved it or anything like that, or I've never fear of missing out for those years where I've like had to catch up and suddenly it's sort of taken over my life. It's just something that I found, on that stag do years ago and opened up that. But I'm glad it kind of did a good thing for me, really, because it kind of opened up socially, lots of different things. Just going to gigs and stuff, which I never really did in my teens, but then I started to do in my 20s. Because I love music sort of thing. I don't play music, but I love listening to music and seeing bands and things, and that's kind of opened it sort of back up. So I think yeah, a lot of my mental health sort of started. I'd say sort of back then when I sort of closed myself in,
Mm.
and a lot of a lot of my thoughts were kind of like, I mean, one of the biggest things, and I probably only really put this to bed. I'd probably say early 30s. I used to compare myself to others a lot. And I think obviously, you know, your mental health's never closed, right? Obviously you still fight it, even if it's good now, you still sort of fight those things. And I still have those thoughts every now and again where you sort of compare yourself to others. And I don't know, and there's no sort of single moment really, but sort of somewhere in my early 30s, I kind of put it to bed really. I think, I can't even sort of pinpoint the exact moment or exact factor sort of thing that did it, but there was just sort of almost like a day where I sort of decided like, no, it doesn't matter what anyone else is up to in that sort of sense. Like focus on yourself
Mm.
and what like you're doing sort of thing and making yourself better and all these sort of things. But don't worry what someone else is doing. Because I think one of the things you do as well, I think the problem when you compare yourself to other people is in your vision, if you're comparing yourself to like, say a friend in your friendship group or a family member or whatever, you're kind of focusing on like, well, they've got this perfect life and they've got this and they've got this and blah, 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 blah. And most often it's not that case. Or you could be comparing yourself to this,
That you've
you
got no
know,
idea.
yeah, that's it. Or, you think they're a very happy person and actually they're not, they're struggling. Or, you know, you, you, they've got a certain life that you think, oh, I wish I had that sort of thing. But then you see what actually involves and you think, actually, no, that's actually pretty tough sort of thing. And I guess the number one thing I found to get over that situation, and hopefully it'll help anyone else that sort of finds a thing of compare yourself to other people and getting down about it and all these sort of things. I found to start focus on little things that make yourself happier. And when I
Mm.
say little things, I mean literally little things as simple as like on a Sunday afternoon, you go to your favorite sandwich shop that you like going to, and you get a nice sandwich, and at that moment you're quite happy, like, oh, I've got this, or your favorite TV show that you like seeing, trying to enjoy those little moments, but just don't take them for granted. Actually enjoy that sort of moment, and that kind of adds up. Then I kind of found for
Yeah.
me, where then you start enjoying lots of different things, and then you just kind of become a bit of a happier person. Whereas I think too many people focus on like distracting from that all the time, that they go off and doing things and they wear themselves out with like all these massive big social things where I find like find some little things that you enjoy, build them up, and then you sort of have a completed picture. Whereas I think if you just focus too much on the outside world and other things that are not like really sort of thinking about, your own happy thoughts and things that make you happy, and you're just sort of doing things for other people too much, and you're kind of like, you're going out all the time and you're doing this and you're not really focused on yourself too much.
Mm.
It all gets a bit kind of lost.
Or paradoxically, and again,
Mm,
say this because this is something I can like properly relate to, is
mm,
focusing on yourself too much. So
mm,
you're kind of the noise that's between your ears
yeah.
becomes the dominant
Mm,
message that you hear, and actually you are often misreading situations. You are overthinking things,
definitely.
and that has a huge influence on how you then go and interact with other people,
Mm,
decisions you make, um, and you. It's almost like when you're a teenager
mm,
at school, and I see this in my daughters now. They are they get mortified
mm,
over really silly things like I don't know, wearing a coat on a day when it's not quite cold enough for a coat.
mm.
I'm not going to do that. No one else is going to be wearing a coat. Why don't I wear a coat? Because you just said you're cold. That's what. But things like that,
Mm,
they think that other people will be paying a lot more attention to what they're doing
mm.
ever reality.
Oh yeah.
But it's so easy to get locked in your own head with this stuff, isn't
Mm,
it? Unless you have somebody around you who can counteract that, or
mm,
you're able to develop the kind of the self-awareness and the skills to be able to take a step back from that yourself.
mm.
Okay, that's and this is going to be rich for anybody that's listening to this that has had a
Mm,
conversation with me in recent months. Your propensity to catastrophize things
mm.
uh, is overwhelming. And you
Yeah.
go, well, if that happens, then that means this, and this means that, and that means,
Mm,
before you know it, like your house is caught on fire, everyone's
mm.
died, and it was all because you didn't take the bins out early enough, or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
it is, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's as sensible as that a lot of the time, but
Mm,
that does become overwhelming. So I'm fully on board with you. Like the noticing the little things
mm,
that you can do that you do have control over that can cumulatively build up to have a really positive effect is
mm.
absolutely huge.
Oh yeah. Massive.
From whether you're in the sort of the throes of a depression and your target for that day is getting out of bed,
Mm,
or you're feeling perfectly contented, but the reason you're feeling perfectly contented is because you've got all of these little things that you've spotted that indicate to you that you're all right, and you
mm.
see that you're doing them.
Yeah. 100%.
The small things really do matter, which
Mm.
again is quite hard to sell somebody. That if you're trying to explain to somebody that you're overthinking it, don't worry about it. But also the small things matter. It's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's so confusing
Yeah.
and nuanced, isn't it?
It is. It's a bit of a contradiction, isn't it? Where you've got to, depend on the situation, sort of thing, or how it applies.
Yeah.
You've really got to sort of look at it, carefully.
The mind is an arse, isn't it? Absolutely. Um, question four. I think we've sort
Mm,
of started to touch on some of these things as well
mm,
already, but let's pick up on this again. So, um, like the key things along the way, like the
mm,
moments when you realized either that there were things that you needed to start doing
mm,
or things that you needed to stop doing that were
mm,
that were helping you to manage your mental health more effectively. Can you think of any examples of either of those?
Yeah, I can't think of a specific moment as in like it was definitely at this point sort of thing. But I think it just sort of, I think it just came naturally of age, like just that late 20s, early 30s when you really start to evolve in who you are sort of thing. I think, obviously during your teenager years, your early 20s, you're really sort of still trying to find your feet, right? And to some extent, we still are, right? In 30s, 40s, and 50s and
Yeah.
60s, even. I mean, like, you are still finding yourself sort of thing. But I think your late 20s, early 30s are when you're most, I think you kind of look at your life almost like you're looking down, right? And you're kind of going, okay, cool. What do I need to change? You might see certain friendships fall away, and there's always two sides to that, right? There's always like, what could I have done more to salvage that? What could the person have done more to salvage that? There might be relationships with your family members or relationships at work or whatever it is sort of thing. And then you start looking back on that and you sort of go, okay, what do I need to kind of focus on more? What do I need to do to stop something getting worse, for example? So I think those sort of things start to sort of come through. And definitely me helping, doing those blogs and things and writing things down. I think there's a lot to be said for that. I think when you write something down and you read back through things sometimes it kind of, you compute it in a different way.
Mm.
Especially when you're reading back your own thoughts and you sort of go, oh, I didn't sort of, didn't realize I was feeling that way or, obviously saying, if you're fortunate enough to have people in your life that you can go to when you're feeling those, I think sometimes saying it out loud then as well can, you know, sort of help a little bit as well because you're sort of, as that person speaking back to you, you might be like, oh God, yeah, I didn't realize, I was feeling that way. Or, of course, what unfortunately does happen sometimes is that person comes to you before you even come out to them and they say, oh, Dan, Simon, I've been a bit worried about you recently. You've been showing this signs of this. And then you go, I think that's can be a bit more frightening because someone's picked it up in you.
Mm.
I think we're always the best judge of our own selves, right? We always feel like, well, I know myself better than anyone else. And we all do that about ourselves, right? We all kind of think we know the best. But when someone else actually picks up something on you before you've realized it, I think you have this, and I've only had it a couple of times probably, but there's this, anxiety induced panic that comes in where you sort of think, oh, hang on a sec, kind of
Mm.
confuses your brain because you're like, well, hang on, I don't feel that way. Or like, I didn't think I felt that way. And then someone else has recognized that in you. You know, dependent, maybe it's culminated in you've said something, that's kind of triggered that quite badly, or you've, just been shown some signs, or there was a particular moment that you've done something and they've gone, oh, you wouldn't have normally done that or said that. Like, what's going on? And I think that can be quite scary sometimes. Whereas I think the trick is, as you get older, to try and recognize that before people can sort of come to you sort of thing and try and sort of sort of manage it a bit. So that's what I try to do now, sort of thing. If I start to feel myself struggling with something or mentally feeling a bit drained, is to kind of like, okay, what can I do to do this? Do I need to you know have a catch up with a friend sort of thing? Me and one of my best friends called Niall, we've known each other since, so I was 8 and he was 7. We always have these, we try and see each other as regularly as we can, sort of thing. He travels quite a bit, sort of thing, but we always catch each other in person, you know, 5, 6 times a year or something. But we always have a phone call, probably like every 6 to 8 weeks, and they always go on a long time. We have like an hour, 2 hour long phone call. But we always say after, we always have like a WhatsApp the next day or something, and we always say, God, I feel so much better
Mm.
after that chat because we both get off things. He's one of my only friends, really. And I have lots of very close friends, don't get me wrong, I'm very lucky. But he's one of my only friends that, because I've known him so long as well, and we've kind of seen each other through that whole period, that we can both really, tell each other stuff that is very much on our minds that we can't sort of tell anyone else, sort of thing. So I
Mm.
think whenever we say those things, you almost kind of feel this sense of relief, like, oh, this has been bothering me for a long time, but one other person knows what I'm dealing with there. But I think also what's really important about having someone like that you know, or if you're lucky enough to have two or three people like that, is they can also tell you as well, like, like you said earlier, you might be so in your own world that you're thinking these certain thoughts about certain things or certain situations where you need someone to go, uh, Simon, I disagree there. You're kind of maybe, give that situation another chance. I
Mm.
think you shouldn't let go of that or, um, like, no, I think you should go ahead and do that sort of thing. And then because it's someone obviously you trust as well that's saying this thing back to you, it's not BS sort of thing. Like, okay, well, this person's telling me this because they love you, they're your friend, the family member or partner, whoever it is that you're talking with. So you two kind of go like, oh, no, I should listen to this advice, and take it sort of thing. So yeah, definitely these chats I have with Niall sort of thing have massively helped sort of thing because I do have other close friends as well that I can't obviously speak to things about, and I've got a very close relationship with my brother. So me and my brother actually live together.
Mm.
Here we've got a house together that we've had, for the last 4 years, and we've always had a very very close relationship. We just a lot of people sort of like say even when we were like playing together as kids, like, oh God, they just get on so well as brothers, sort of, and they've got a very unique sort of friendship, really. And we can speak a little bit about mental health together, sort of thing. But like even just if you're feeling bad, sort of thing, you can go to someone like that, and you don't even have to speak about the things that are bothering you. But even just being with that person, like my brother, for example, or a close friend, is naturally healing you anyway, without even having to necessarily speak about those demons you're facing. Because
Mm.
just in their presence of being with someone that you might not even, they might not even be comfortable necessarily about speaking about those things with you, but they can sense that something's up. But they have the whereabout to know, like, okay, I'm not going to bring it up, but I can sense that Simon's not feeling right today. I'm not going to push him for answers on these things. I'm just going to hang out. We're going to have a good time, and you go from there.
Yeah, I think I see that, and there's a couple of things that I've found myself doing, which is
Mm,
one is borrowing people's energy,
mm,
two is making plans. So what I mean by borrowing people's energy is sometimes I'm increasingly good at recognizing when I'm feeling flat.
mm,
And again, this is part and parcel of being an introvert. I think it's exhausting being around high energy people,
mm,
but sometimes I can recognize that actually I need a bit of injection of time with an energetic person. So
mm.
they might not know it. In fact, I've got increasingly good at telling people that I am basically borrowing their energy from them. But sometimes I need to go and see somebody that has a different perspective. My default is glass half empty,
Mm,
it's glass half full. Um, just some sort of energy source that's different from how I'm feeling is useful.
mm,
And the other point on making plans is if you have things booked in, you might not be thinking about the things that are coming up,
mm,
but the fact that they are coming up is the thing that matters. So,
mm.
for example, Friday just gone, one of my favorite bands of all time um, released tickets for their tour next spring. Um, they're only playing one UK gig. As
Oh wow, okay.
soon as those tickets came out, I went, got them. So I've now got a pair of tickets to go and see that band in March,
Mm,
6 months before I'm going to see them. But I know that there's a thing coming up in March that I'm going to be doing
mm, mm.
that I really want to do.
Yeah.
And I'll be going there with a mate, and that'll be a chance to catch up with them.
Who are you
And
going to see? Who's the band?
this will get people Googling. Uh, it's this band, Belgian Belgian alternative rock band Deus. So that's
Oh,
their
okay.
debut album.
Oh, cool.
That's their second album, and the tour is that album versus that album.
Oh, okay, cool.
So that's 1994,
Hmm.
and this is 96.
Oh, cool.
So, the only bands that I've got every single album from
Hmm.
ever. Um,
Oh, nice.
and they are, yeah, they're brilliant. But I was also thinking they came on tour last year,
Hmm.
and I didn't get the tickets because I thought, oh, there was only one London date. The tickets were a bit expensive. It was on the
Hmm.
east side of London, so I was like, oh, I don't know if I can be bothered. And then afterwards, ever since, I was thinking, I don't know how much longer these guys are going to be going on.
Hmm.
I may have just missed my last chance to go and see Deus live.
Hmm.
They could implode imminently. So when I saw that they were touring again, I thought I'm going to go for it. But it means that I am thinking 6 months.
Hmm.
I've got I'm in training for a half marathon at the end of this month, a half marathon at the start of the next month. I'm also doing a half marathon at the end of March
Oh, blimey.
as well. So knowing these things are coming up, each one of those is a chance to spend time with different people doing something
Hmm.
I love doing. And it's not going to be at the forefront of my mind that these things are coming up until I actually get to the day itself. But
Hmm.
knowing that those things are going to happen matters.
Hmm.
And I think if anybody is listening to this and is feeling sort of despondent, ask
Hmm.
yourself, have you got any plans?
Yeah.
And if you haven't, make a plan. Maybe it's in 2 days' time, catching up with a mate over a coffee.
Hmm.
Maybe it's go and do park run next Saturday. Whatever
Yeah.
it is, that is a plan that gives you a thing in the future that you want to do that is coming up. And it makes a huge difference, I think.
I agree. Yeah. I think having some goals, um, or just like you said, even just like, catch up with friends or whatever it be sort of thing. I think it's a big thing because I think if you don't have those things, like you said, subconsciously you're sort of like, and I guess like some people, right, they love living that moment. I do have some friends that are very much like, you know, they literally just go, 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 and like, if they want to meet up, they'll ask that day, like, hey, do you want to meet up this evening? And they kind of live that life, and that's great, and that works for some people, sort of thing. And maybe they live that life and never have any problems. But I think for the average person, I'd say, like, you do need some kind of like structure
Mm.
and just some kind of like, oh, I'm going to catch up with my friend, like you said. We're going to go to this gig. It's next year. But I think some people get a bit worried about that. I don't know. I've met some friends before that go, oh, but I can't book a gig that's a year away. It's a year away. I don't know what I'll be doing in a year. And I sort of think
Well,
we
you
were
do if you book it.
doing the gig. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I think people, I don't know, one of the things I found, I don't know if you found this, but I don't know if it happens a lot more these days or I just notice it more these days, but there is a lot of like non-committal for a lot of people, like it's almost a comparison of things. So like, you might say to someone like, hey, do you want to go to the cinema next Friday? And they'll be like, yeah, yeah, let me see what's going on, sort of thing. Whereas, in that person's head, they're going, okay, well, am I going to a party that day? What do
Mm.
I do? Do I do it at a party or that? Or, my girlfriend or my boyfriend wants to do this, I might want to do that. Rather than actually going, yeah, Dan said he wants to go to the cinema. I want to see that film as well. Let's book it in. And there's
Mm.
a little bit of people, and some of it can obviously come from there's going to be lots of perspectives to it. Sometimes it's going to be down to mental health. That person is just, they're not too sure what they're doing at the moment, like how they're feeling. They might have some anxiety. It might be purely that like they are just a bit wishy-washy and like, trying to compare different things, which is not a nice way to look at it sometimes. Like people will sometimes do that and not know they're doing it. I think if you pulled them aside and said, are you choosing between me and another person of like who you want to hang out with? And they might go, oh shit, oh no, no, I didn't mean to do that sort of thing. But there is a lot of that happening sort of thing. And one thing I've always, like, no matter what, done, even since a teenager up until now, is when someone says, do you want to do something or do you want to book something in? I would never deviate away from that.
Mm.
Obviously, if there was like an emergency situation, obviously that's different. But if someone says to me, "Hey, like, there's this gig next year. Do you want to go ahead and do it?" I'll be like, "Yeah." I'm never thinking in the back of my head like, well, I'll book it for now, but if a week before I decide I want to go and do this, that just never
No.
enters my mind sort of thing. Like, so if a friend says to me, like, even as something as simple as, "Do you want to go for a coffee next week?" and I say yes to it, like, unless it's an emergency situation, like for me, it's like, no, I've booked that coffee in my calendar for next Thursday at 6 p.m. That's what I'm doing. Because there's a lot of thing as well, like, you don't know, like, in your head, let's just say you're going, okay, well, a couple of days before someone goes, or like you're on a dating scene maybe, and a date comes up and they go, "Can you do Thursday?" Sometimes people will go, "Oh, well, I've only got that coffee with Dan
Mm,
that day. I can move it." And you're thinking that head, just oh, that's just like I can move it to Friday. Dan will be free then, or I can move it to next week. He's not going to mind. But you don't know, right?
yeah.
You're meeting up for that coffee with that friend. That friend might be really needing that evening to see you, and you're deciding in your head. You're almost kind of thinking for that other person, right? You're going, oh, well, it'd be fine. We can read you the coffee next week. And you sort of go, well, you don't know, do you? You don't know what's going to come up next week, or you don't know that that friend needs it that way, or people will sometimes say like, oh, well, you can always do that another time. I think that's the biggest one that people use, which I think is mentally pretty impactful because you kind of go in, oh, well, yeah, but that was to go to a gig. So I said to him, we'll do the cinema some other time. We can do that any other time. And it's like, you're just assuming that.
Mm,
Number one, but number two, you're kind of almost treating that friend or family member or acquaintance in a, dismissal way, like, oh, wow, and that can be quite impactful on people's mental health as well, because you don't know what effect that's going to have.
no, you don't know what they needed, and
Mm,
it's very hard for people to speak out and say, "Oh, well, I was actually really looking forward to that." But it's very rare that you hear that, isn't
mm,
it? And people are kind of left to their own devices.
mm.
Um, but yeah, so be be kind to yourself, but also remember
Yeah,
that there are other people in the world as well, and
100%,
they might
100%.
have needs, and you might be central to helping them.
Yeah.
Um, Simon, this has been a really, really nice conversation.
No,
Um,
cheers. I appreciate it.
we are at question 5, which
Mm,
is, and this is not asking you as an expert, this is asking you based purely on your lived experience.
mm,
If somebody hears this and has been through something similar or is experiencing sort of similar
mm.
experiences to the stuff you've talked about today, what is the most important thing that they can do?
Um, so I think it obviously varies person to person, of course, and situation to situation. I think different situations warrant different responses. I think if you find yourself in a very serious situation with very, very serious dark thoughts, I think you urgently need to obviously address that sooner rather than later. That can mean obviously speaking to someone like the Samaritans or something in place like that, speaking to a doctor, a family member or friend that you trust. Sometimes it can either be just someone point that you trust. It can even be a colleague that you wouldn't normally speak to that sort of thing about, but you trust them enough to hear you out and listen to you. I think if it's not urgent, obviously definitely do those things. I think do those things anyway if it feels like it. But I think if you're suffering with just a day-to-day situation like that, I think giving yourself some space, I think, is an initial thing to try and do.
Mm,
Don't try and cover up the situation. So I think don't sort of think like, oh, okay, well, I'm feeling really bad right now. I'm going to go out and get blind drunk, or I'm going to go out and go in this massive group of 20 people that I don't feel comfortable doing, or, sort of don't feel bad for taking yourself out, or feel sorry for yourself either. You can sort of feel okay with going, right, need to have a weekend to myself this weekend, right? Sit and just think about and like you said, balance the not thinking too much about your thoughts in your own head, but just almost kind of going, okay, what's upset me right now? How do I address it? But how do I address it piece by piece?
mm,
You don't have to sit there with it an hour of sitting down and go and solve all your mental health problems for the rest of your life. It's okay, how can I fix this right now to make today better? How can I feel better today on a Saturday? And then we'll think about Sunday tomorrow, and we'll think about Monday, but not like, all right, how do I feel better from now for eternity? How am I
Yeah.
going to? Because there's not this one thing that's going to fix something. There's not, and going back to the comparing to others earlier, you know, there's so many things in your life that can affect you that having the magic cure isn't going to fix anything. You get the old saying of, you see it with celebrities a lot, right? I'm a massive music fan, and one of my biggest inspirations was Chester Bennington,
Mm.
who was the lead singer of Linkin Park. And, for those not aware, sort of in Linkin Park, massive band, sold 50 million albums or so. And Chester Bennington was their lead singer, and he committed suicide in 2017, 8 years ago. And it affected me quite a bit at the time because that was just on the edge of when I was starting to get my sort of self better, sort of thing, when I was sort of feeling bad, sort of thing. And I remember that was like quite a big impactful moment. I was like, oh God, this person I listen to every day, sort of thing, has done this thing. And you do that typical thing, right? Like there's a lot of people look at it and go, oh, well, he's a multimillionaire and he was married and had kids. And, why is he gone and done this sort of thing? But you look that he had lots of childhood trauma, and lots of mental health problems and things. But making millions of pounds didn't sort that. Having his own family didn't sort that. Having people idolize him didn't sort that. There's not this one thing that's going to sort your mental health issues. No matter your financial situation, no matter what job you've got, you could be a big CEO in a top company. Doesn't automatically mean that all your mental health issues are gone. And I think sometimes in people's head they think that will solve it. Like, oh, the reason I'm feeling this way is because I've got this certain life right now. And obviously, it's always good to better yourself, and it's always good to try and do things that will make you happier in your personal life or happier in your professional life, etc. But there's no one click button that's going to suddenly make you feel good. There's so many people suffering that have got, I say again, on the, you look at it from the outside in, right? You're looking at it going, oh, this person's. I remember actually there was with the Chester Bennington thing. You can actually find it on YouTube still now. There was a radio interview he did. I think it was. I can't remember which country it was in. It might have been Australia or America anyway. But Chester was actually open up in this interview, being very warts and all, and it was just him. None of the other band members are there, and he was sort of talking about a lot of his how it is inside his head. And they're kind of laughing along, joking around, like, "What? You sound like a crazy person." It's literally some of the stuff that's saying back to him, and he's open up fully, sort of thing. But there's this like natural reaction of like, and they're not laughing necessarily. I think if they were to look back on it, they would say like the host would go, "No, no, no, we weren't laughing at him saying these things," but they were laughing in the sense of it's like multi-millionaire sitting in front of us who's one of the best sinners we've ever seen and idolized and stuff is saying these things. He must be joking around or he's kind of like but there's this guy that was open up in this moment,
Mm.
and then you look back and you go, geez, can't believe because I think it kind of when someone that you idolize commits suicide or shows signs of a struggle in mental health, I think you connect to it, don't you, quite a bit. I think you sort of I remember actually remember my mum saying something because my mum and dad are like very close to my parents, but they never really talk about those sort of feelings and stuff. But I remember something my mum said to me once that kind of worried me a bit. I was coming up to 30, so it would have been just not too long after Chester had passed, and I was spending my 30th birthday with a friend of mine that lives in Ireland. And I remember my mum just sort of pulled me aside and she said it was like quite harrowing sort of thing. She said like you are coming back, aren't you? Like you're not going to go and do something silly. And I was a bit sort of shocked because she'd never said something like that before. And I said, oh, what makes you say that? And she said, oh, with Chester committing suicide recently and, notice sort of thing, you've been a bit down recently sort of thing. I want to make sure you're not going to. I was like, no, no, no. Like, but that was one of those moments we spoke earlier, when someone picks out something in you. I
Mm,
remember after that conversation, sort of going, "Oh God, am I showing signs to people that I'm not in a good headspace?" Sort of thing. And it's that sort of like moments, yeah, where you sort of go, God. And I think that was one of the start, because like my parents had never said anything like that to me, and I think that was one of the start. I guess you're talking about the light bulb moments, just for over then. That was one of the things, I guess, yeah, that was like a bit of a trigger where I went, oh, hang on a sec,
mm,
something's up here because I've not recognized myself, and I'm normally very good because I find myself I'm a very perceptive person. I can read people very well. And me and Niall, my friend I mentioned earlier, he always says that sort of thing, like you percept people, very well, sort of thing. You know what someone's about. I can normally tell without judging a book by its cover too much. I can normally tell within a short conversation of someone very much about what they are, what drives them, what negatives about them, like various sort of things. And I'm very good at doing that with myself. And that was one of the first moments where I hadn't realized that,
mm.
and it was
Caught
kind of
you off guard.
scary. Yeah, but it's also I was worried in the sense of like, I didn't want my mum thinking these thoughts sort of thing, like shudder to think that your mum's thinking that sort of thing about you. And you want to obviously put them at ease as well. So I very much did so. I was like, no, 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 like honestly, I appreciate you asking sort of thing. No, honestly, I'm okay, and I don't want you to, me to go away on this, week's holiday sort of thing,
Mm,
having those sort of thoughts because that's horrible for other people as well, isn't it? You don't want that someone in your life thinking those sort of thoughts, and anything you can do to sort of rest their mind straight away, sort of thing, because you don't want to them that whole week thinking like, oh, I've seen Simon in this situation, I'm a bit worried, sort of thing,
mm.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. It's the listening to other people, considering other people,
Mm,
whilst also looking out for yourself is the order of the day. And I think what you've just said there, I think it amounts to just be willing to talk about
mm,
those. Don't shy away from them, because like the first step towards any sort of improvement is being able to get that stuff off your chest. If
yeah,
even if you weren't expecting it, even if you hadn't realized yourself, just having
mm,
that conversation with somebody helps you to frame it, doesn't it? Helps you to understand yourself a bit better.
yeah. And you know what? One of the big things I want to say to people as well is never dismiss someone that comes to you that you don't know. Like I think me and my brother, we always have this sort of joke about each other where me and him both get approached by everyone. We seem to have this like beacon on us or something where no matter what, we go to a gig, we go out to a bar, to a restaurant, we just seem to have this thing where people come up to us. I'm always the guy that people come out asking directions for. I'm always the guy in a supermarket where people want to know where stuff is. I'm always the guy that everyone's asking those sort of questions to. But with that comes quite a lot that you will sometimes have characters that will open up to you about certain things. And I think sometimes in this culture, we're kind of like acclimatized to people will almost make fun of it. Like I've seen posts before, sometimes someone's like, oh God, went for, got on an Uber and the guy was banging on about how things are hard recently and, oh, don't want to hear your life story, mate. And people were kind of dismissing it as in like, oh God, that person was babbling on, blah, blah. When they're not actually looking at whereas actually that person saw something in you that they want to open up, even just for like a 20-minute, Uber ride. And you should have listened to them and maybe don't make fun of them on the internet and these sort of things. So that's one thing I've always tried to do, sort of thing. Whereas, I could be at a bus stop and someone might be opening up a bit more than you expect in a first conversation, but just listen to them. I had one years ago actually. I still remember this today where I was coming back from the park run in Bracknell, and near the park run there they've got a cemetery, and there was this older guy, probably in his 70s or 80s maybe, and I had my music in as well. I was obviously running, and he sort of stopped me, but in like a sort of polite way, and he just sort of said, "Oh, do you remind me of my son?" I was like, "Oh, oh, thank you very much." He's like, "Yeah, you look just like him," sort of thing. I'm sorry to stop you. I just wanted to sort of say that. And I could have just gone, oh, cool, yeah, cheers, mate, have a good day, and carried on. But I could sense that he wanted to talk. He didn't show me any sort of signs that he wanted that conversation to end, sort of thing. So I sort of said, how you doing, sort of thing. He said, oh, I'm going off to um, I think his wife had recently passed. He was going off to a tombstone, pay his respects, etc. And then he just started opening up, saying, my son that, you look like, sort of thing. He never comes to see me anymore, really. And, he's doesn't even live that far away. He only lives sort of 20, 30 miles away. And yeah, he just sort of started open up. And I probably spoke to him for about, I'd say, God, about 20 minutes or so. It was
Mm.
quite a long conversation sort of thing. And, and he spoke about a few things and whatnot. And then just after the conversation, he just said, thanks for stopping and talking to me, though. You have a good day, sort of thing. And he walked on, sort of thing. But I remember thinking about it. It really sort of hit me, that conversation, because I think this was probably only about 2 years ago. I remember thinking, like, what had happened had I not listened to him then?
Mm.
And I just, did the natural thing of like, oh, I've got a place to go, I've got to go, sort of thing. And it was a 1 minute conversation. That 20-minute conversation might have been something he really needed that day. Or so, I always say to people, like, never shove someone off, sort of thing, because you sort of think, oh, wow, they're babbling on, or having that kind of attitude about a thing, something like that. Kind of look at it and go, that person might really need to get something off their chest right now, and you might have, you don't know how deep it goes, right? It could be something as simple as that person want to get something off their chest that day, and you just make their day a little bit better. It could go very deep rooted in that you just had that conversation with someone. They could do something quite drastic later that day,
Mm.
and you've prevented that. Or, it can really go so deep. You don't know how deep that conversation goes that you just had with someone. That in reality was just a 20-minute conversation, right? It was 20 minutes out of your day that you just had with someone,
Yeah,
and
right.
they suddenly can feel so much sort of better for it, sort of thing. And they might not even realize. Sometimes they'll might say to you like, "Oh, thank you so much. You made me feel so much better." Sometimes they might not say it, but later that day they look back at it and go, "Oh, that was really nice," sort of thing. So I think that's something I always say to people is that always just know, no matter how much it might seem like it's not a big thing, that little conversation just in a taxi ride or just at a bar or something like that. And it could be any age as well. That's the other thing as well. It doesn't have to be an older person because sometimes it could just be that, you're at like the junior park run, for example, and I don't know, a little kid says something really nice or something, or like makes a joke out of one of your hat you're wearing or something like that. And it's just, they smile as they run away, sort of thing. And you're like, oh, that person just had a better day by me taking that minute to, you know, entertain their conversation or something. It's something as simple as that
Yeah,
that you don't think is a big thing, but it can be a massive thing.
yeah. Choose kindness.
Yeah, that's it.
Nice.
100%.
That's a lovely note to end the conversation on, Simon. Um, Thank you so much for giving up your time to have this chat.
Our
I'm sure
pleasure.
it's going to be helpful for people. There's just it's just a lot of really sort of solid, grounded, useful, practical um, advice from the experiences that you've had, and I'm really grateful that you came forward to have this discussion. So thank you for that. If someone's heard this and they'd like to have a conversation with you directly, is it okay for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've got my Instagram account out there. It's nice and easy. It's just Simon from UK. I'll start sort of so I'm going to start doing my blogs that I'm going to do for another channel, which I'll start publicizing at some point as well, once to get all the meat and potatoes done on that.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. I'll drop the links to your Insta and your LinkedIn maybe in the description of this. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sounds cool.
yeah, awesome. Thank you.
No
Um,
worries.
yeah, really appreciate it, Simon. Thank you to everyone else for listening, watching the conversation. I hope you found it helpful. If you have found it helpful, give us a like, a share, drop comments wherever you see this. Specifically, if there is somebody you know that you think is going through something similar that might benefit from seeing this, send this directly to them because this is the way that I want this platform to work. I want it to be there for people when they need it. So if there is somebody that you know that might benefit from hearing this conversation, just ping it to them directly and let them know that it exists. Um, if you are listening to this on one of the podcasting platforms, what would also be incredibly helpful is reviews. By all accounts, it does not matter what you say. It's more the star rating that you give. So if you're inclined to give a high star rating, please give us a high star rating. Be kind in the comments, but that won't affect how it helps it to travel. We've only got a few reviews so far. We're only traveling a small distance, but the more we get, the more people's feeds the conversations will appear in, and the more potential there is for them to help other people along the way. That's it for now. We will be back again very soon with the next episode of Good Enough Chats. In the meantime, take care of yourselves, look after each other, and we'll see you soon.